Mike, don't forget your mic.
Thank you. Mrs. Irvin, roll call, please.
Mr. Lane?
Here.
Mr. McCutcheon?
Here.
Mrs. Cope? Here. Mrs. Dalton? Here. Mrs. Berry?
Here.
Item number 4, adoption of the agenda. Need a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved?
Second.
You got snubbed. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Cope?
Yes.
Mrs. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. McCutcheon?
Yes.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item number 5, communications and reports. Item A, presentation of invited guests. Mr. Severs.
Yeah, so I'm going to introduce Mr. Keith Pantling, our athletic director. He's going to step to the microphone back there and do a little presentation. We have with us this evening the Kilgallen family and Calvin, and then Coach Simcoe from our track, indoor track team as well. So I'll turn it over to Keith for a little recognition of Calvin here.
Yeah, well, first off, I wanted to recognize and thank the Board of Education. Last school year, at the beginning of the year, you guys agreed to sponsor the adding of indoor track and field in the winter. And what that allows us to do is to have the school sponsor it. We are able to enter some indoor track and field events during the winter months. And so while we promote multi-sport athletes, many of our track and field athletes also run cross country, and they're out training on their own in the winter time. So what it allows us to do is have those student athletes train with our coaches, and it does at no cost to the district. We charge them a fee that covers the transportation and the entry fees into those tournaments and those meets rather in the winter time. And so the last 2 years we've been able to do that. This year we'd had 45 student athletes out competing in indoor track and field all over the state of Ohio. So it's been a really, really great initiative. We appreciate your support. One student in particular who's succeeded, I was joking with him in the lobby that I've been here for 4 years since he was a freshman, and I've done a lot of recognizing of Calvin. He's had tremendous success, not only as a student, he's one of our premier students in everything he does, but in terms of cross country, he competed this fall in the state cross country meet representing our boys program, and then went to the indoor, last spring I should mention, he finished third in the 800 meter event at the track and field, the state outdoor track and field event. So on March 1st, he went and represented us along with some other warriors in the indoor state meet and won the 800 meter, which is half a mile in 1 minute and 54 seconds, just blazing speed. So we thought it was appropriate to recognize him publicly for that, and also our coaching staff, who they do not get supplementals for that indoor track season, and their commitment to our kids, their training and traveling with them to these meets shouldn't go unnoticed as well. So Coach Simcoe, Coach Collier, and the others do a tremendous job. So I'm going to bring up Coach Simcoe to talk a little bit about Calvin, and then Calvin was going to say a few words as well. So Coach Simcoe.
Thank you, Mr. Panling. I'm Jason Simcoe. I teach English at the high school and work with the track and cross-country teams. I wanted to first echo what Mr. Panling said. We are extremely grateful as a program to have the opportunity to run indoor track the last couple of years as a school-sponsored club. So we're very grateful to the Board of Education for that opportunity. I think it gets our kids out in front of great competition. It gives us an opportunity to kind of fine-tune our craft in the wintertime, and it puts some of our kids in these elite opportunities like Calvin and Hannah Glassmeyer in the 800 last week, Elena Wilson, Hannah Glassmeyer, May Panic, and Kendall Heffel also qualified to the indoor state meet in the 4x8. So having those opportunities out at these big venues like this, big opportunities is tremendous. A lot has been said about Calvin over the years, and Mr. Pantling captured it pretty well. I don't know what else I can add other than that. All of the accolades that Calvin has achieved over the last 4 years. He's been now 5 times All-State. He was 29th in cross-country, earning All-State. He's been 7th, 6th, 3rd, and now 1st at the indoor and outdoor state meets. All of those accolades are because of his incredible work ethic. He runs when it's hot, he runs when it's cold, he runs when it rains, he runs when it snows, and in Ohio that sometimes happens all in one practice. But he is extremely detail-oriented. He is committed to being the absolute best of the best. He goes home and stretches at night. He gets to bed instead of playing on his cell phone all night. He does all of the little things that make an elite athlete an elite athlete. And so it's a testament to his dedication and his perseverance and his focus on honing his craft that he's become as good as he's become. He has a lot of natural talent, but I don't think we'd be standing here talking about him as a state champion if it wasn't for all of those other intangible things that come on top of that. So Calvin's going to wind up and take one more swing at it this spring. So I hope we're back here talking to you again in June after the outdoor state track meet. But he has already left an impact on our program. He has raised the bar of what it means to be successful and to be elite. I think he's opened his teammates' eyes to what it means to be elite. And so that's a great testament, again, I think, to him to leave the program better than he found it. So we're really, really proud of what Calvin's achieved. He's, as I said, a 5-time All-State athlete. He's a multi-time state qualifier school record holder. And, if we're making our Mount Rushmore of great Lebanon distance runners, he'd be smack dab in the middle. So, Calvin, we're really, really proud of the success that you've had, and looking forward to 3 more months of running fast in circles. So, I appreciate the time to talk. Calvin, were you going to say something? Come on down.
And Calvin's going to the University of Cincinnati next year to continue running track.
There's not much to say other than thanking the community that's helped me get here. I wouldn't have been able to apply myself in the way that I have if it wasn't for the support from the coaches and staff that work hard to put all this together. So I'd just like to thank everyone for that.
Calvin, we want to get a picture with you in the Board of Education, if that's okay. We have Ms. Birkin here to take a nice photo of that. So if the 5 of you can kind of step out in front of that, Calvin, come up for a photo. And then if anybody has anything to say to him while you're out there. Sorry, Mr. Lane, to steal your thunder as the former track coach, right? You ran an 800 that fast, didn't you?
Not that fast.
Okay.
Not that fast.
I'm gonna have you guys scoot this way a little bit.
Center.
Yeah.
Keep going. Calvin in the middle,
Just a
right?
little bit more, yeah. There you go. And then like squeeze in close like you enjoy being around each other. Okay. Hold on. Light's different than that. Okay.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Good job. Thank you.
You see home meet soon.
No, you got it right.
Congratulations. Good job. Wow.
You did good work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Such a great addition. You're welcome to stay here and enjoy the rest of the meeting, but that's probably Matt and
Indoor track.
Get out while you can.
Thank you. Thank all of you for everything you do.
Thank you.
He ran a 10-800 meters. Love track.
Moving on to item B, hearing of the public. We do have someone signed up tonight, so I'll read this really quick. Please note, presentation is limited to 5 minutes per person or 30 minutes total. There's only one signed up, so we'll hit the 5-minute mark, right? Any resident of Lebanon City School District having a legitimate interest in the actions of the board may participate during the public portion of a meeting. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. No person may address or question board members individually. And the presiding officer may interrupt, warn, or terminate a participant's statements when the statement is too lengthy, personally directed, repetitive, abusive, obscene, or irrelevant. So, Mr. Fear, if you would like to step up to the podium and introduce yourself and your address, please.
I really don't need a microphone.
You need it so they can hear you online, though.
Right. Good afternoon. My name is Donald Fear. I am class of 90, back when I was taller and I had hair. I had just written a letter, an email to Mr. Sievers, praising everything that we've gone through on Friday. We were homeless last year. We had some economy stuff, but we weren't homeless. And now we have secured a small little apartment here in Lebanon. We like to stay here till my kids finish school. Now, myself, I'm the one who gets totally vested in my community. I like doing that. But about an hour after I wrote a praising letter, email, saying all the great things about this school district, my wife received a text from my daughter. Now, as the custodial parent, I've always been the go-to guy, and apparently my daughter sent it to mom, who related to me. I guess it's your school policy that in your 9-week periods that certain teachers only give 4 to 6 bathroom breaks, passes, which if you have, if it's 9 weeks, that's, potentially 40 to 45 days that you're allowed 4 to 5, 6 bathroom passes. That's 10% of the time. Well, my daughter was in her ROTC, because she does ROTC, she has choir, she tries to become involved in school as well too, and she needed to use a lavatory. She raised her hand up, talked to, I can't think of her name was, Fifth Bell English, and teacher said, no, you can't use the bathroom. Well, her fifth bell is right after lunch, and that came up later, but eventually my daughter was able to go to the bathroom. Now, I'm a guy, so I don't assume to know much, but it was a menstrual cycle, and she bled through. Now, my daughter, who actually goes through counseling here too because she has anxiety issues, isn't going to be the one, hey, I got to change my tampon, like that. And she was trying to be discreet and subtle about it, but I met with Bob Reynolds that day, because I was pretty livid over the whole situation, and he says, a couple things he said was, this was immediately after lunch. She had plenty of time to use the bathroom before this occurred. Your lunch is 30 minutes. So after she has to go to locker, drop off her books, go get in your line, grab your food, eat, clean up, and then grab your next class's material, and hopefully your locker's near. But sometimes finding time to go to the bathroom is kind of hard. But Winter didn't need to use a bathroom. She didn't have to go to number 1 or number 2, and she didn't have any warning that her menstrual cycle was going to occur. Once again, I know nothing of this. But so was she going to get shamed in her classroom because hey, I got menstrual issues? No, she didn't want to do that. She bled through her ROTC uniform, but fortunately for her, she had another change of clothes. But my question, to resolve this, Robert Reynolds told me that from now on, she simply just needs to tell teacher that she needs to see the nurse, which could also be embarrassing if you have to constantly see the nurse, to use the bathroom. So as an escape, it's a bypass to say you need to see the nurse just to use the bathroom. But if that is a bypass, why even have the policy to begin with? If you got to go to the bathroom, hey, I got to see the nurse, and to go, why even have the policy about bathroom breaks? I mean, and he said the teacher should have unconditionally let her go to the bathroom. If it was a problem, to refer it to the principal. That's not everything. I mean, going to nurse, everything. If there's a problem with the student being derelict or whatever, tell the principal. That's their job, is to do that, not the teachers. But I had signed a lot of paperwork when enrolling my children. One was a medical release form. Winston has it in her medical files about the ongoing UTIs she has had and need to be able to use the lavatory freely to prevent further issues. Again, I don't know much about UTIs, so ladies, you have to bear with me on this one. But there was even a note that she got from her former school, or to her former school from the teachers, or from the doctor saying she needs to use the lavatory. So I propose this body reevaluates the school policy about bathroom passes. I mean, if you're going to just say, hey, I'm going to go to nurse, there's even no reason for it now. The principal's giving it out. And then the second thing, I mean, that's my point. I want you guys to reevaluate and see if it's necessary. Because to be able to go to the bathroom 4, 5, or 6 times in a 9-week period, your timing might be up. But that's my issue on that one. The second point, as I wrote to him, parents are the primary educators. We use the schools to supplement and reinforce what the students need to be proficient. And certain once-in-a-lifetime events should be allowed to be taught by the parents. And that's why I wrote a letter. In the praise letter I had for Lebanon School District, I said, hey, I'm going to keep my kids out April 8th because this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and the parents, all the burden of teaching shouldn't be on teachers. That's why parents are here. We should take responsibility and be more proactive in our children's education, and that's what I try to do.
Okay. And I think Mr. Severs is going to touch on that in just a few minutes.
Thank you for your
Yeah.
time, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I just wanted to respond real quick. I did receive the email back from him, and I told him earlier that I discussed that with our high school administration, and we're going to be having a discussion about our policy in terms of restroom passes and the consistency of that. So that's, I appreciate bringing it to our attention, and it is a topic of conversation that I've already reached out to him about following that. So, thank you.
Thank you.
You don't mind if I stick around and listen about the place?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you can stay the whole time if you,
Yeah.
if you really want to.
He's like you, Mike.
Yeah, he is. Item C is a student board member update. Alexa Lane.
All right, this one is kind of packed, but there's not a lot of new information because our last board meeting was only a couple of weeks ago. So, okay. First thing, we talked about this. Sorry. You guys approved the FBLA field trip a few meetings ago. It was super successful. We had 19 students qualified for the national conference this summer. As you can see, that's a big portion of the students that went. Allie Bisman, who is our president at Lebanon High School, and she's on the state officer team, received the Darlene Allen Award, and freshmen Zaria Thamavong and Lillian Blankenship were both elected into the state office, which, again, huge honor there. Next thing. Okay, Teacher Academy went on some field trips, and as you can see, there's some senior pictures of them in internships. One of the field trips that the students took in a Teacher Academy class was the Educational Expo at the University of Cincinnati, and Mona Kinman, who is in the gray sweatshirt on the screen, was a 2023 graduate, and she got to speak to the class, so I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, so, and I've heard the internships are going super great as well. Teen Mental Health Day was last week, I believe, and the High School Hope Squad handed out donuts for students before first bell and mental health goodies at lunch. The Lebanon High School Hope Squad received a grant from the Joe Burrow Foundation, so we were able to purchase 700 donuts and hand those out to students and staff at the high school. Disney trips, so choir students and orchestra students went to Disney, and they had a magical time. That was kind of funny. Right? The Lebanon Optimist Club had their annual essay contest, and from left to right, Allie Bisman, Vivian Repka, and Andy Dooning all received awards for their written pieces. Vivian placed first, and she'll be entered into the Ohio District Optimist Contest at the state level. So best of luck to her as that competition continues. Okay, we're getting into the athletic successes here. So state swim meet, we had 3 Warriors go to state, Elizabeth Ketchum, Keely Maines, and Emma Palmer. They all did amazing and big successes there. So we're excited to see what their future holds. State wrestling send-off last week. There was a clap out for 6 Lebanon Warriors that advanced to the state wrestling meet. I know that 2 of them placed at the state level, if I'm correct. So again, super great honor. Super excited to see that happen, and can't wait to see what they accomplish in the future years. This is a little repetitive, but I think it's a really big honor. Elena Wilson, Hannah Glassmeyer, Kendall Heffel, May Panic, and Calvin Kilgallen all represented the Lebanon Warriors at the indoor cross-country meet. Just to reiterate, Calvin got first, which is super exciting. I'm super proud. Can't wait to see what he does during the outdoor season. And then some upcoming events. Tomorrow is Junior ACT Test Day, so best of luck to all those juniors taking that test. And then Wednesday, I think I have the date wrong there, but there's the Warren County Career Day Sophomore Welcome Day. And then prom is Saturday, April 13th at Great Wolf Lodge.
That Warren County Career Sophomore Day, that's a new thing they're doing this year for the students who've been accepted, the ability to go there in the afternoon and see their program, meet their new instructors, tour that facility. So I think that's going to be a good opportunity for them to see what to expect next year. Thank you very much, Alexa.
Thank you. Superintendent's report, Mr. Severs.
Yeah, so I have, stop this here for a second. I have some information about the solar eclipse day coming up, which is April the 8th. It's a Monday. It's our plan, it was our plan, it is still our plan as of today, to be in school that day. We purchased, for the entire district staff and students, we purchased glasses for them to be able to observe and see what's going on. They're really dark, you can't see anything unless you're looking directly at the sun. So we talked about having that. We've purchased those for everybody in the district. We had lessons and plans that were going to be done heading up to that, and some activities that day as well. So our plan was to be open and be in school. The timing is around 3:10, where, and we're not directly in the total path of eclipse. We're just outside of it, but we'll be able to see a pretty good view of it here. High school and junior high will already be gone off the school lots. Most of them probably home by 3:10, just based off of our routes and how things work in the district. Berry students, the plan was to kind of have them at the end of the day to go outside, see that as a class, then go get on the bus or get into the parking lot. So timing-wise, would have worked for them. And then afternoon at Donovan and Bowman, they would be able to experience it at school and then get on the bus and go home in the afternoon. So we wouldn't have really any unsupervised time with our youngest students, or the students that we're most concerned about in terms of maybe the safety of it. Well, schools around us began canceling or changing their days of school, and we looked at it in a couple different directions. If we shortened the day of school, let's say we released 2 hours early, well, that would put Bowman and Donovan students on a school bus at the time of the eclipse. The ability to keep those glasses on a kindergartner, probably not great as they're traveling home on a school bus unsupervised. So it's either kind of all or nothing in terms of school that day, if we're looking at it that way. And what I have, I'm going to share with all of you is, there's 2 pages per thing there. Should have passed it out ahead of time. This was a letter that came to us from the Warren County Emergency Management Agency. So the Warren County Emergency Management Agency, Butler County, others sort of around us have been communicating with school districts about the potential for afternoon travel concerns. This letter is outlining recommendations from the agency, possible concerns about afternoon traffic. So the event is expected to bring into our region hundreds of thousands of people who don't normally live here. And the concern is that there will be terrible traffic. What's happened previously in other areas, that there were delays of hours along highways and roads in the area surrounding where it was viewable. And then we started thinking about putting Bowman kids on the road, Donovan and Berry, after the eclipse has ended, when everybody is trying to either get to the next location to see it at the next spot along the way, or whatever it may be. And so their recommendation is that we consider canceling school because of those safety concerns. So I don't want us to have kids stuck on a bus sitting anywhere for 2 hours in the afternoon. That their concern is that communication, things like that, with a lot of people in the area trying to make calls, text, and do things, will be a potential problem in the afternoon. Now, our luck, it's going to rain and be cloudy that day, right? But I can't wait to call it the day of. I feel like it's something that we need to let families know if we're planning on doing it. So I would like to, I'd like to modify our day that day, so students can be home with their families wanting to go and view this together as a family, but also the safety and concerns. So it is pretty much split in Warren County. This is why I'm asking maybe for some direction or thought from you as a board. Some people are calling it a calamity day. It is a weather-related event. We've used one calamity day this year, and so if we used a calamity day, nobody would report to school that day or to work, staff and students included. The other thing was that some people are using it as staff is reporting for a portion of the day and then going home, midday type of thing. There aren't any planned professional learning, opportunities that we have, so it'd really be a partial workday for them to do work on their own in their buildings. But that's what some districts have decided to do. So I just wanted to gauge the board members' input on your thought on it being a calamity day or modifying our schedule to be a partial workday and requiring staff to come for a portion of the day. Or I guess if all 5 of you are really opposed to us canceling school altogether, then can entertain that as well. So
I like the idea of a calamity day. We haven't used many. Some things I've read too talks about lack of resources. For example, apparently when it's happened across the country, gas becomes a problem. That could happen anytime within those couple of days surrounding it. They're saying grocery stores, things like that. So to have teachers even come to work and be stuck could be a problem too. So I think a calamity day is what I would probably go for.
I heard about this about a month ago, and I was surprised when I saw the news flash that schools were canceling because of this, but I think the more that you bring up potential issues and that we haven't used our snow days, calamity days to this point, it probably, and it's a Monday too, so that's at least not in the middle of the week to disrupt too much school. I think that we probably take school very seriously in education, so we just don't take days off for no good reason.
I mean, the idea for me was this is an educational experience, right? We're prepared for it to be an educational experience. Our plan is we'll send glasses home with kids on Friday with the lessons, like, here's information about what's going to happen, and here's what you can do, and, that sort of thing. We'll still try to share that information with them. But we viewed it as an educational experience, and we're an educational entity, right? And so that was my idea, that was my rationale for not canceling school that day, but I have greater concerns about that information.
Yeah, I've been reading that people from 5 different states are coming right to here. So if you're comfortable with calling a calamity day, I'm comfortable with calling a calamity day.
Okay. We looked at it, like I said, we're just outside of the map, but there are concerns along 63, 48, things that don't necessarily, that people would use to get around or get between the highways to try to get on to the next location if they, to do that. So I have a map if anybody'd like to see. I've been sitting at my desk checking out whether it's going to be a problem or not. But we've been trying to gather as much information as possible. So I wanted to make sure I brought it to you for any input you had. We will communicate this with staff and families in the next couple of days, just to make sure that they understand what's going on and how we're planning for it. Anybody else on that?
I agree. It's the potential for traffic. I mean, I heard last time there were some areas that had 3 to 4 hour delays in traffic. I can't imagine having a 7-year-old on a bus for, it may not happen at all, right?
Yeah.
But just the potential of 3 hours on a bus in addition to their normal route is.
Would not be a great experience.
No.
I had 50 people in my parking lot last time.
Yeah, and I'm glad we're doing it
I mean,
now to give parents time to plan.
I think that's another concern. People using the large parking lots in the area to park in could be safety concerns.
Well, I was handing them like my welding helmet because they're all in the parking lot. So we were like, I was handing welding helmets out. Yeah,
If you're going to look at this, right?
Yeah, look through this,
Look through
please.
this.
Yeah, it was something.
Okay, the next one is just as an update on where we are with the Legacy project. A couple of things I mentioned the other night at the Booster Gala. We're about 90 days into the turf project at Lebanon High School from the day they broke ground and started. And we've had 25 rain or weather-related cancellation days in that. So
And that's your fault because you talked about how little we had at the beginning.
at the beginning, they were flying, we were cruising, and I jinxed us. So I did want to mention that they're getting close to finishing the actual turf. The crane operator last week came in to look because they have to set the new light poles. and they have to get into a location in order to set them. They weigh like, I don't know, 30 ton or something. It's a ridiculous, large concrete pole. And so that has to be dry enough to get the crane into that location. So right now, things are kind of weather dependent on lights in order for us to finish that up. We're looking at the turf and the things around it being done in the next couple of weeks. But just wanted to give that update. If you go to the Legacy Project, Lebanon Legacy Project is what it is. We sent information out on a postcard last week to all of our residents. If you click on project updates, it does give you the option of seeing some photos. And those photos down here, sorry, I wanted to show you this real quick. These photos give you an idea of what's going on with, that's the bleacher replacement, which the bleacher replacement, we're going through the permitting process right now. It's down to nothing out there, just some gravel that was left over from before. So we're hoping to get permits here in the next week or two. And I do have a meeting next week with the Planning and Zoning Committee, Commission in Lebanon to discuss the plan for this. But remember, we chose to stay within the zoning requirements. So our hope is that this is not an issue because we're not getting too tall or too close to the property line back there. So that's speaking with that gentleman today, we're on schedule. And then this other photo here, sorry. As of last week, we had turf down. And you can get an idea from this picture. The lines are, they have to sew in every individual hash mark on the field. That's why it looks a little funky right here across the top, because there's a bunch of pieces of turf laying there. But it's in place at this point in time. They'll begin doing some landscaping work and some things inside the fence. And then the other thing that I just want to let you know is we've attempted to kind of save and reuse everything that we can as a district. So the old handicap accessibility deck that was down at the stadium, it's like 65 feet long and 25 feet deep. We looked at it. We can get these bleachers that are up here outside the fence right now. Those were the youth football bleachers that were there before. We can get that set of bleachers pretty close to the 50-yard line and get the handicap deck over there on that side of the field, which would give us some handicap seating over there. And that's $100,000 piece of decking that was there that was purchased for handicap accessibility. We're keeping it, reusing it, trying to be as efficient and with our dollars as possible there. So I'm excited every time I see something different happening out there. It's a pretty awesome feeling to know we're playing lacrosse there within the next 3 to 4 weeks, hopefully. So any questions about the construction project? And then the last thing is just to touch base with, I sent out today emails to our staff members with a staff survey link for our strategic planning process. And they also, all of our staff will have an opportunity to participate in a 1-hour session on Friday. It's a work day for them at the end of the quarter, but they can jump on, contribute, and share their input if they'd like to do that in addition to the survey. So we hope we'll have 3 different opportunities on Friday. That's the second phase. The first phase was last week with Board of Education members, meeting with the Strategic Planning Company Impact Group and our administrators. So be looking for, I'm going to be sending out invites tomorrow to some members of Lebanon Chamber of Commerce for a community business leaders discussion to get their input, and then also inviting some parents into a discussion that are currently involved in PTO, PTA, booster organizations, or other parent groups that we already kind of the engaged parents that we have. But also every community member and every parent will have the opportunity to fill out a survey as well. And then the last piece of that will be some student focus groups in April. So that's where we are, strategic planning. Our goal is to have stuff in June finished for that. And I think we're off to a good start. So that was my update for the day.
Thank you. E, board committee reports. Start with the student achievement liaisons. Jennifer or Michelle?
Yeah, it was supposed to be me, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to work with my PowerPoint today, so I worked it, and it's not going to be sent. So I probably will pass this month, just because everything is on my computer, and it just died. So there you go.
Well,
Okay.
we have
So you
another
got
month.
next, you guys
I
are
have next
alternating
month,
months. Gotcha, okay.
I apologize.
That's all right. Technology happens, right?
Yes.
B is the CAT committee, Mr. McCutcheon.
So we did not have a meeting this month since we only meet quarterly, but if it's okay with the chair, I'd like to make another quick comment.
Absolutely.
I want to thank the Lebanon Warrior Booster Organization for the gala that they put on Saturday evening. It was extremely successful. You'll notice later in the meeting some donations from the boosters, and everything they make goes right back to our kids. They had 327 attendees, and every auction item sold. And I have one statistic specifically for Mrs. Cope, and I hope this gets into the minutes, Karen.
She's typing.
Out of 327 attendees, I was only older than 325 of them. So it was a
But
big
man, he
win
looked
for me.
he looked really good, though. He looked really good in his outfit, and Joanna dressed him nicely that
She
night.
picked
she
all my
did.
clothes out.
Thank you for reporting accurate information in your report.
Because I knew that was heavy on your mind, but it was extremely successful event. They raised a lot of money. Big thank you to Kelly McKnight, who chairs that part of the booster group, and I think Amy Lane was heavily involved as well, and many more, but it was fantastic, and that's it, Mike.
Thank you. Warren County Career Center Liaison, I will say, we had a meeting last Friday night of all times. But that meeting was specifically about, they also going through their 5-year strategic plan. So we were meeting with kind of what we did at our work session. It was the board's turn to do the Career Center version of the same document. So using a different organization, but we have our regular meeting next week, so I'll report back on that one in April.
Skipped Kevin.
Oh, I'm sorry. I checked you off after Roy was talking.
Roy gave all of our reports.
Legislative Liaison, Kim Cope.
I don't have a whole lot to report. The state senate voted to concur with the House on the Senate Bill 17, which was sponsored by Senator Steve Wilson. And this just requires an update to standards and the model curriculum for financial literacy and entrepreneurship in grades 9 through 12. This is to include a free market capitalism content. This will now head to Governor DeWine for his signature. Another thing that this is pretty much Senate stuff for the state. The Senate unanimously passed and amended Senate Bill 104, which is a revision to the operations of College Credit Plus. And this is to include requirements for students, public and chartered non-public schools, public and private colleges, and just different regulations that they're going to have in changing the program. And lastly, the Senate also passed and amended House Bill 27, which was sponsored by Adam Matthews and Jim Thomas. This requires state institutions of higher education to provide financial cost and aid disclosure forms. This is supposed to help for students to understand what costs they're incurring when they go to college. And it's just some more transparency with that.
Yeah, so Adam spoke to us on Friday at the Warren County Superintendent meeting, and the idea of this is basically a one-page disclosure like you get with your mortgage. So what it is that you're signing, how much are the payments going to be monthly, what's the overall payment you're going to be required to pay at the end of this? And based on the current major and career pathway that you've selected, what is your expected earnings? So to try to give some better understanding to students, you're taking out $100,000 in loan and you're pursuing a degree that's $30,000 a year, whatever it may be. And so the idea is transparency on the part of colleges, giving that information to students before they take the loans. One page, not buried someplace else.
I like that a lot.
I do
think
too.
it'll be
I thought
really-
it was a good
I
one.
think it'd be a really good bill.
Yeah.
It's one that I've supported with him and supported in Columbus as well, so.
And that's all I have.
Mr. Severs, the financial literacy class, I know we teach it in a few of our classes already, but when do you think that that will be an official class in the curriculum for, what is it, juniors or seniors or what?
I mean, we're requiring, this was the first year we were required to offer it. This year's freshmen
Okay.
have to have it as a credit for graduation.
Okay,
So it's
We're ahead of the
already,
curve a little.
we're ahead of it. Okay, so we are
so we
teaching-
offered it,
Okay.
we offered it already prior to this. We've revised the class to meet the standards that are in this new curriculum. And obviously, this would be a modification to that if there's more for us to cover with this. But they can take it their freshman year or any time through their senior years. But it's current freshmen in Ohio have to have it for graduation.
Okay, good, thanks.
Anything else? Good. Mr. Severs? Item number 6, approval of the minutes and signing. I need a motion to approve and sign the minutes of the regular meeting on February 20th and the work session on March 6th.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Berry?
Yes.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Mr. McCutcheon?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mrs. Cope?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item number 7, need a motion to approve items A through H.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Irvin?
Okay, so we finished February, so we are not yet to the May forecast, but, so this is our most recent forecast as of November. Come May, I will present the new forecast. But we're looking in the green box, we're looking at the projected for 2024. So this is the first year, if you recall, that we will spend more than we receive as projected, and that will continue through the next 4 years, but still leave us with a positive balance, which if you remember from last time, that had shifted quite a bit. So just keeping that in mind as we're looking through these financials. So 8 months of the year we're in. This was an interesting month. So we'll talk through some of what's going on, but you'll see the gray line is where we're actually at. This is our cash balance. And the red line is where we thought we would be. So it's a little bit different than what we thought. Blue line is where we were actually at last year. That is pretty standard if you think about we're spending more than we're receiving. That would decrease our amount of cash. So right now we're at 120 days of operating cash, which is our target. We think we'll end the year with about 125, which is really close. So taking a look at what's going on with that cash balance, if you take 8 of your 12 months, you're looking about 67% of your budget to be spent and received. On our on our revenues, which is primarily property tax, we are at 66%. So the biggest variant there is our property tax. We have to budget, there's no way for me to know exact dollar amounts per month. We get property tax twice a year, but it usually spans 1 to 2 to 3 months. It's usually about 2 months. So I take what we received last month and that same month, and that's what I estimate we'll get this year in that same month. It came in less than it did last year, if that makes sense. I anticipate in March we'll get the remaining amount because we're not getting less than we did last year. It's just when does the payment get to us? So I think this will catch up by next month. Property tax, as you know, is the biggest revenue we have. So if that fluctuates, that completely changes our numbers. So I anticipate this will happen. This will wash itself out next month because we'll get the remaining portion of our property tax payments. Expenses, we're doing a little less than anticipated, which is great, 65%. Our biggest variant here is we have a supplemental, our final supplemental coming up in March. So you'll see that number come really close to what our estimated is there as well. I've started presenting this. So last month, if you remember, our revenue was only about $300,000 off what our anticipated was. This has jumped to 3 million. So you can see how month to month, these numbers shift all over the place based on what's going on. The good news is we know what's going on, property tax payments. Again, I think it'll catch up in March. On the expense side, we're pretty close. We're about 300,000 off. We have that supplemental pay, and we also have that loan payment that we've been talking about the last few months. So pretty much right where we expected. I added a few slides. So we did this last year in January. I added it in here as just a little refresher. Typically, when I give you these presentations, I'm only focusing on our general fund. Our general fund carries the bulk of our expenses and our revenues, but we have a lot of different funds. So the way I think about this is we have a bunch of different types of bank accounts. You think about your checking account, your savings account, you might have a vacation savings account, a regular savings account. You might have different kinds of accounts. That's how I consider these fund types. So our biggest are the general fund. We also have some special revenues. We have a debt service fund where we pay our bond levies through. Our capital projects, voters just renewed our capital levy, so that's coming through our capital projects funds. We also have some of these other ones, enterprise funds. I think of those as a business fund. You have to bring in what you're going to spend to cover the cost of that, quote, business. So,
that'd be like food service, right?
yes, our cafeteria fund is what that is. Private purpose trust funds, so like our scholarships, and our agency funds. The pie chart there shows you the bulk, that blue, is our general fund. That is why I report to you the general fund. It's the bulk of what we're doing. Some of the other funds are larger, the special revenue funds. We have some really important grants that flow through the state. Those are special revenue funds. So you'll see a larger section there. The orange is our second biggest. That's our bond retirement fund. So how we're repaying, we collect the property tax to cover the cost of the improvements for the new buildings we made or we built several years ago. So we have 28 funds in total. It's a lot of funds. I don't typically report to you all 28 because they are in varying amounts. What I report to you typically is the general fund. Your monthly financials, which we're going to talk about next, covers everything. So you're getting all the detail. If you ever have any questions, by all means, let me know and I'll address those. But because we're talking through the cost of teachers, the cost of all of our other staff, and our property tax, I tend to focus in on the general fund, if that makes sense. So this is one of the reports that's included in your financial packet. It's called the Cash Summary Report. What I typically look at is what I would recommend that you look at. This lists every single fund that we have. So every month you get this report and it lists what's happening in every fund. It gives you how much money we started the year with. It gives you how much money we're ending this month with. It gives you everything that was received and everything that was spent. So this is a really good tracker for, do we have any negative funds? So we haven't received, I'm just going to give an example, we're funding a student activity group and we haven't received the fee money to cover that. We charge for field trips, for instance. They're taking a field trip, we haven't collected all the money, but we had to pay for it up front. We had to put a deposit down. Those are the things that I'm looking at on this report. You go to the next one. This is another report that's in your packet. It's a disbursement summary report. This lists every single check and payment that the district makes in that month. So you get this report. It has it by vendor and it has it by amount. So literally it has the check numbers. All of this information is available now online through ohiocheckbook.com. We're really excited to do that as a transparency initiative. So all of this detail is available for everyone, even above and beyond this report. But this is in your financial packet, so you can review it each month. And this is very small, but these are some of the other reports that I give you. So I want to make sure that we have balanced the bank to our books. So we give you the bank reconciliation sheets. We also give you all of our investments. Any money that is not needed for direct operational uses, we try to invest that to earn interest. Now, when I first started, we were getting no interest. So this really didn't matter a whole lot. We've started, the interest environment is much better, so we're getting some interest on that, which is pretty exciting. And then the actual interest that we're getting. So you get a sheet where we allocate it. Certain funds are required by state law to get interest. This is how we allocate. We have certain bank accounts that tell us, but some of them is just, we base it on fund balance. So how much does the fund have? We give you an interest amount similar to that. So obviously, as you might imagine, the general fund gets the most interest. That's what I have. Any questions?
Well, I think you're doing a great job with transparency, especially putting it, in that checkbook thing, which is great. And that's just in the past couple of years, right?
Yeah, just this year, actually.
Just this
Yeah.
year. So with 28 funds, is that a lot to manage? And is there, would you ever combine any or delete some or?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the, on both the banking side and the accounting side. So one of the first things that I did when I got here, some of the other board members probably remember me coming and saying, I have all of these scholarship funds, I have all of these student group funds that haven't been used for years. I'd like to combine them, close them, move them over to where you can do that. We did that, the board approved it, and got rid of, it went from higher than 28 down to 28. So that absolutely, it's something we actively work towards making that a little bit easier. Bank accounts are the same way. I don't want to have 20 different bank accounts where I have to manage where's the money sitting. So we try to make sure that we're getting the best interest. We have to diversify our earnings, right? You don't want everything sitting in a CD because it might not earn as well as something else. So there's that fine line that we play. But,
Okay, good, thanks.
yeah.
Good question.
I was just also going to say, of those different accounts, some of them are required by law accounts to be used for a specific purpose.
Okay.
So we can't use permanent improvement levy revenue for anything other than permanent improvement. So we can't cancel that account out.
You can't get down to one account,
Yes,
right?
we
It's-
can't get out of that account and put it over in general fund because the revenue source dictates it gets used on things that last longer than 5 years. And so some of it is because the law requires that. Athletic is an enterprise account, or food service, it's money in, money out.
What's to that point, what's the minimum number of accounts we could have? You have 28.
You have to have one for the general fund. You have to have one for each unique levy. You also have to have one for each unique grant. So depending on how many grants, that number changes,
Yeah.
I guess is what I'm saying. There are many different stipulations of,
So you're not gonna get down much lower than 28, though?
no,
Yeah.
we've done, if we decided we're not gonna have any student groups, I'd get down pretty low. But that's
I
never gonna
mean, a
happen.
lot of angry students out there.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Anything else? Good. I will read through the list. C is amended appropriations. D is amended certificate of estimated resources. E is a list of donations, and a couple of those that Mr. McCutcheon already spoke about from the boosters, along with some other very nice sized ones. We appreciate those. F is a tax resolution. Anything you want to talk about on this one?
So this is something you do annually. Once you all approve the tax budget, I send that over to the county. The county budget commission takes that and certifies how much property tax we'll get. So that is what this is. You guys have to approve that, yes, you agree with those amounts.
G is to approve the revised fiscal year 24 exempt salary schedule, and H is some then and nows.
I did want to comment briefly on G. You'll notice that we We deleted and changed the name on an administrative position there, so we got rid of the Student Services Coordinator position, which was no longer being utilized, and replaced it with our MTSS Coordinator, which in a few minutes you'll be voting on a new MTSS Coordinator position, person. So that's not an additional administrator. We're reusing that position from something else, so.
Okay. So roll call, please.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Mr. McCutcheon?
Yes.
Mrs. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mrs. Cope?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item number 9, or it's number 8, public records request. And then number 9, other educational consent items. I need a motion to approve item 9.
So moved.
Second.
And this is an overnight out-of-state student trip, a couple of those actually. LHS Electronic Music Ensemble concert in Indianapolis, and Lebanon High School varsity girls softball team, the Mid-Ohio Classic, Marshall Park, Ontario, Ohio. Any questions on those? Any comments on those? Good. Roll call, please.
Mr. McCutcheon?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mrs. Cope?
Yes.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Mrs. Berry?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item number 10 is personnel. Need a motion to approve items A through H.
So moved.
Second.
Read through these. A is a list of resignations. B is an administrative contract.
Yeah, so that's the position I just talked about. Emily Williams, actually a Lebanon resident, parent of some students here, has a great administrative background. We are super excited to have her in this role of MTSS coordinator. I think it's going to be huge for our district as we become better and more adept at using data to inform instruction. So I think it's going to be phenomenal. So I'm excited to work with her.
Okay. C is employment, and I just want to commend Mr. Dalton. I mean, we are so ahead of getting teachers hired for the next school year that, I remember we were years ago scraping right before the school opened to still fill some slots, and just
As of
seeing
right-
these contracts come in is amazing.
As of right now, they've interviewed and offered jobs to all of our currently known vacant positions, I believe.
That's
We're
amazing.
ahead of others in the area for that. We've got a few other things that we're still, I think, finishing some interviews for, but we're in really good shape. He's done a phenomenal job.
Hopefully, I did not just jinx us like you did the turf project. But
Well, you know, I'll blame you. I'll blame you.
D is substitute employment. E is supplemental volunteer coaches. F is a list of change of status.
So one thing I just want to point out, because I don't know that this happens all the time, but when we hire somebody, we hire them in at like the pay grade, which is like the position grade, and then we start them at step 0. So if you look at like Mary McGowan listed there at grade 2, step 2, she was before at grade 1, she's moving to grade 2. So that's because she shifted a position. But what happens when we start hiring these people is you go back up to like the top of the page, Jacob Stallings, bus driver, step 0. But as we get his verification of employment in, as we get some other things, if he has years of experience that we have to credit towards him, we do that as a status change as we get transcripts from college for teachers or things like that from previous employers. So we get them on the agenda, and then we fix it later if there's a discrepancy in the number of their steps they should be on.
Okay. G is a list of volunteers. I say it every month, and I'll continue to say that. We really appreciate the volunteers that come into the schools. H is a leave of absence, a couple leaves of absence. Any other questions or comments on A through H? Roll call, please.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mrs. Cope?
Yes.
Mrs. Berry?
Yes.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Mr. McCutcheon?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item number 11, other business. Need a motion to approve the amendment to the employment contract for Superintendent Isaac Severs, which will be effective August 1st, 2024.
So moved.
I thought there'd be more of a pause than that. Do we have a second? Who'd you give the first
Who was
to?
the first?
The one closest to me.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Mrs. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. McCutcheon?
Yes.
Mrs. Cope?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item number 12, I need a motion to enter into executive session to consider the appointment, employment, or compensation of a public employee or official, and to consider confidential information related to the marketing plans, specific business strategy, production techniques, trade secrets, or personal financial statements of an applicant for economic development assistance, or to negotiate with other political subdivisions respecting requests for economic development assistance. That is a mouthful. All right.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Mrs. Berry?
Yes.
Mrs. Cope?
Yes.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Mr. McCutcheon?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Motion carried.
And just for those of you watching online or watching this later, we will come back to adjourn, but we will not be voting on any items at that time. Thank you.